Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to start in a minute. It would be nice to know where you're joining us from. Jaya, Pankaj, where are you joining us from? Prabhu, Sayantan. Maybe you can just put where you're joining us from in the chat. Hi, Uday. Okay, good to know that. Okay, we have Gaurav from Delhi, Pankaj from Vijayawada, Uday from Lucknow. Anyone else wants to tell us where they're joining us from? Jaya is from Delhi as well. We have someone from Calcutta. All right. I think we can begin, Pramath.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, Sinha.
Hi. So just a few, we have lots and lots of time to answer your questions, and we hope that this is an interactive session. I will be unmuting you to sort of ask your question directly, but it would be great if you put up your hand, so that I know who is interested, or you can type your question in the Q&A section, and, we'll be able to take the questions as we go along. All right. So today, the topic today really is preparing to pivot. What does that really mean, Pramath? I mean, when people are in a specific career and we talk about this term pivot, what do we really mean?
Seema, I think what we mean by this is that often we are in roles or in functions or in industries, companies, where we've been working in a particular domain for a long time. And then we feel jaded, we feel that our potential is much greater than what we are able to demonstrate or engage on in that particular role. And that we need to try and do something different, something new. And it's not easy to shift because people look at you and say, oh, this person is an IT person or a software engineer. This person is a finance person. This person is a marketing person. This person has only worked in a construction firm. Somebody has just worked in the social sector. And it's not easy to shift. So how do you make that shift or that change happen? I think is something that we all struggle with. Some of that change happens naturally. When a new opportunity comes, somebody takes a chance on you and they say, okay, I'm willing to give you this chance to come and work with me in a completely new area. And then that pivot happens, it happens sometimes organically. But sometimes people feel like that's not enough. They would like to pivot in a way that takes them into. It's not something that just happens to them, that it goes into something that they've always wanted to do but couldn't do earlier. So they need to add something to themselves. They need to show some additional interest, qualification, skill to be able to make that pivot. And I think, how do you do that in a deliberate manner, in addition to obviously having the opportunistic chance to do it, the luck of doing it versus doing it deliberately is really the preparation that goes into making that pivot. And even if it happens by luck, how do you make sure that you are prepared, that you're able to tell your story, you're able to say why it is that people should take a chance on you or people should try you out in a new area. So I think that's what preparing to pivot is. If you look at my own career, Seema, I was very much an academic and a researcher, pretty nerdy one at that. And then I made a pivot into the world of business. Once I decided to do that, there were few and far opportunities, but when the opportunity came, I was ready. I had a story. I had the ability to be able to say why people should pick me, even though I'd never worked in a business. I was 29 years old. And you could argue that I had no prior training in business. So why would anybody pick me? But I prepared for it. I self-learned to get to that point. Other people may go do a program and a full-time course to be able to do that. So that's really what preparing to pivot really means. You've done many pivots in your lives.
Yeah, I have an unstable electricity connection, and my internet may drop off. But yes, yeah, I don't think you know this, but I actually started in television, and I actually worked on
Oh, I didn't know that. There you go.
From there, I pivoted to journalism hardcore, and then from there, I moved to public policy, and now I'm doing EdTech. So I think there was a very interesting professor who used to sort of, I think has interacted with you, and I met him through you, Chris Dede. And he used to talk about how, we no longer will have careers which are in one career for the rest of our lives. We'll constantly have to find new things to do. And not just a new job, but sometimes a whole new career. And it's not going to happen once or twice in our lives. Is probably going to happen through our lives, and that's what we need to start preparing for. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yes. In fact, you said better what I was trying to say also, that long-term preparing to pivot is to be prepared to make multiple pivots through your life. People say that you are now going to live much longer. By virtue of that, we will also have to, unfortunately, work much longer, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. When I look at it myself, I'm going to be 60 soon. I'm still active, working. At my age, my father was pretty much retired. Look at my sister, she's 70 plus, and she's still working quite hard because she wants to. But yeah, I think you'll work longer. And during that period, because new industries, new segments, new companies, new roles will get created. Like EdTech did not exist, Seema, till 4 or 5 years ago. So where was the question of you even thinking about it? But then when it came about, you were able to make that shift. You were able to make that change. So what was in there in your life that allowed you to do that, and maybe do it again and again, is what I think we all need to be prepared for.
So Pramath, and part of everyone here please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box or put up your hands. We are happy to chat with you or take your questions as we go along. But Pramath, so are pivot makers actually also risk takers? I mean, do you have to have that sort of ability? Or are they people who have the foresight to see, hey, something else may be better for them? Or are they just people who may be deeply unhappy with what they do right now, or maybe just feel like, hey, I've done this for long enough, and therefore, what could be the reasons why people pivot?
I think I started by saying that I think people pivot because they get tired of what they do. They feel that they are meant for bigger, better things. And sometimes they just find something exciting that comes their way. So it's not that they're running away from anything. They suddenly realize, oh, wow, this is something new. In that sense, they are risk takers. They are trying out something new. There is always inherently a risk when you pivot that you may not like what you do. But they are comfortable with that. They're saying, okay, if that doesn't work out because I'm capable of pivoting, I can pivot again, because the skill is in being able to constantly pivot. It doesn't matter if something doesn't work out. It lowers the risk in a way if you are prepared.
So what's one of the toughest things that happens, or when you want to pivot, what is one of the barriers or things that sort of hold people back from pivoting?
Oh, obviously the fact that you worry that you will fail, that it won't work out. I don't think people are so scared of pivoting. People are more scared of the potential failure from pivoting. And that's a marked distinction, right? I think everybody would be excited about a new opportunity, new area. By definition, we as human beings are curious. We want to try out new things. We want to have new experiences, most people. But I think what holds us back is the fear of failure. The fear that, oh, what if it doesn't work out? What will I do then?
Okay, interesting. So we have a question that's come in from Pankaj. He says he pivoted 4 months back, and he was heading media and sales for 25 years, and now he's in a communication role in a university.
Oh, nice.
And from revenue generation to efficient promotional expenses, and also dealing with academics and understanding their communication needs. So he wants to know, is there a strategy that he can adopt so that he can sort of adapt to this new pivoted role much faster?
So I lost you for a minute there because I was switching devices. When you said that he had pivoted, what was the question?
He says, is there some sort of strategy so that adapting to his new role can be quick?
Okay, so if you are now in a new role, how do you? I think the strategy there would be to multiple strategies, right? One is, if it is truly a new industry, try to learn more about the domain. You can learn by talking to people, other people who are working in the area. You can read up on it. You can these days learn stuff online. You can seek out people on LinkedIn and ask them questions. You can look at people who worked in the same organization before and who are willing to help. So I think that's one which is really about garnering new knowledge and new information that gives you some expertise and some comfort with the area. But I think what we try to say at Harappa, Seema, is that there are certain core skills that are essential in any job, in any role, in any function, in any domain. And having those skills allows you to start functioning from day one. So, an example of a skill would be a structured way to think about problems. And the structured way to think about problems gives you the ability to do problem solving in an area that you are completely unfamiliar with, to do problem solving in an area where you have not had any prior education, knowledge, training, degree, and so on. So again, learning about problem solving, for example, would be something that I would suggest that we learn how to do. In any new role, and you and I know this, Seema, even if you don't know the domain and you're not an expert in its new area, being able to communicate well immediately wins you the respect of your team, people in the organization. And so I think really focusing on communication skills becomes very important. If you're managing a team, and again, a good example of this is that even when I was working at McKinsey, I would often be told that, oh, Pramath is not a very smart thinker or problem solver or domain expert. He's a generalist. But he's very good with people. So he's able to pull in the right people and get them to solve the problem for him. So the ability to do that, the ability to pull in different people and experts, even if you are not an expert, is a core skill when you're pivoting. So yeah, I would try to pick up while I'm trying to build up my domain expertise, and some of it you'll come naturally because you're doing work and you're learning. Also thinking about what is the best way to solve problems that I can apply to the problems I'm seeing here? What is the best way to communicate? What is the best way to engage people? Are all things that I would prepare for. I'm a little bit familiar with some of the areas that he's working on. And I can tell you that the problems in promoting a university and so on are not that complicated. If you just applied some of these foundational core skills that I'm talking about, you'll actually be very effective. And it actually lends itself, that area lends itself to what I'm talking about.
I have another another interesting question that's come in. This is GS, and he says, he or she says that they've been in 18 years across RNA and management consulting, and has also had an entrepreneurial stint. Functional focus on enterprise sales, consultative. So he wants to know, he or she wants to pivot to AI evolution. Basically wants to pivot into the field of AI and what's happening there, but does not have any coding experience or an engineering background. Yeah. So wants to know, can they pivot?
Yeah, I think about it. Firstly, you can do it. You don't need coding and engineering experience. You can apply AI. One way to enter would be to learn about how to apply AI to data. So even if he's doing enterprise sales, I'm sure he has had to deal with large amounts of data of how customers are buying, what are they buying, pricing, product, all of that. I think he will have the core skill of managing data. And I would then do a little bit of data science, data analysis. And data science and data analysis, actually, naturally, the advanced form of data analysis is actually AI. Because you first start manipulating data and working on data using tools and techniques. And again, you don't need hardcore programming, or these days there are products and tools that are available even for the non-engineer, non-programmer to manipulate data, as people say, wrangle data. And once you learn that, then you evolve naturally to data analytics to data science, which is it's almost the version 2 or the advanced version of data analytics. And the advanced version of data science is AI. So you enter it through doing data analytics. And then you go from there, is the way I would think about getting into AI.
So Pramath, we also talk about transferable skills. Like, how does one figure out what are my transferable skills, and therefore how can I use it to apply it to the field that I'm currently interested in? How does one do that exercise for themselves? Can they do it themselves? Or that's where, say, a program like AMP or something comes in?
Yes, I think that is where the program like MPA comes in. I was just doing this today with a student at the Young India Fellowship at Ashoka, where I teach. And she was asking me these same questions. So how do I know what my transferable skills are? How did you know when you were going? I gave you the example of going from research to business. How did you know what your transferable skills are? It's not easy, because you are so immersed in your own area that you almost can't be a mirror to yourself, right? You're so yourself that you can't see, you can't get out. It's a little bit like zooming out. You can't zoom out because you're so zoomed in. You can't see the forest for the trees, as the expression goes. So sometimes you need help. So what I did was very live in the class today. I just asked her a bunch of questions. What have you done? Where did you grow up? What are some of the achievements you've had in life? What are some of the challenges you've faced? What do you think you enjoyed doing, and so on? And what very quickly came out is that this woman had a very strong background in basketball, which she played from a very young age all the way to college and at the national level. And not only did she play, she was also the captain of her teams along the way. Now, that is a transferable skill which she hadn't been able to relate to the world of work. A lot of people do sports, but they're not able to make that connection. And more importantly, they're not able to sell themselves to a potential employer. As you know, we do a lot of that at AMP, and I did that with her. I said, listen, at the end of the day, the way to position it is to say, listen, I'm a natural team player. I know how to collaborate. I know how to work in teams. I know how to deal with conflict in teams. I know how to contribute my best given my strengths and my role on a team, rather than being in conflict with others. But more than that, not only am I a team player, I also know how to get the best out of a team because I've been a captain. And how do you assess people for each of their strengths and weaknesses? And how do you enhance their strengths? And how do you cover for their weaknesses? And how do you give them roles that make them contribute in the best way so that the whole team does well? All of this comes naturally to me. I think that's a very powerful thing to tell any employer in any sector. What I also found was that she had some very interesting examples of how she grew up in rural Haryana and then had to be sent off to a boarding school, and then came to big bad Delhi and studied in a Delhi University college, and now is at Ashoka. And if you look at her life journey, the transferable skill that came out is that she had to deal with a lot of adversity through her life. And she had dealt with it with a lot of equanimity, with resilience. And so the story there was that, hey, I'm very adaptable. I'm somebody who, despite these obstacles, despite the challenges that I've faced in life, I've not been held back. I've not been disheartened. I've been able to overcome them. I have very strong drive and aspiration and ambition to succeed come what may. I think that's a transferable skill. The third thing about her was that she said that because of the mentoring of a teacher that she used to have from a very young age and who she had kept in touch with, the teacher taught her to think very deeply about problems. She would challenge her, even though she was a physics major. Her teacher encouraged her to think about very philosophical issues like life and death and love and so on. So she had inculcated an interest beyond her domain. So again, being able to say that, listen, I'm a naturally curious person and I've been told to go deep into problems thanks to the mentoring I got because of this teacher. I'm not the usual Delhi University BSc in physics. In fact, that is what made me come to the Young India Fellowship, because I really wanted to be able to broaden my horizons and explore myself. And I think I will bring that to any job that I do. I think this desire to go deep, the desire to uncover the real issues and problems on any task that I'm given is something that comes naturally to me. That's a transferable skill. Now, this ability to take somebody's life journey, which has been in one domain, be able to extract these ideas, these themes, these strengths, these skills from their life, and be able to then, if you will, translate it, offer it, connect it to future possibilities, is really an art. And all of us can develop it, but we have to be taught it. We have to be able to think it through. And often you need the help of a mentor, a friend, somebody who can be a natural mirror, somebody who can see in you things that you can't see. I think that's a very important element of the program that we run at the Harappa School of Leadership.
So Pramath, how is, just before I take some more questions, maybe a little bit more about how is the accelerated management program different from, say, an MBA or say the 1-year ISB MBA that you set up? What are the maybe 3 key differences, maybe pros and cons, if you like?
Yeah, I think one big difference, Seema, is that those programs require you to quit your job, take time off, and be on campus, at least for a year at a place like ISB. Mostly, if you want to do a good MBA in India, over 2 years. That's a high cost to pay from an opportunity cost perspective, because you have to give up working, you have to move cities, so on. But it's also high cost. You have to spend a lot of money in doing those programs. What we have tried to do with AMP is to make it making use of technology. We made it truly a blended program and a hybrid program where we give you the flexibility to learn while you work. In a way, it's a work and study program. And we make it convenient for you. It's designed for working professionals, and we make it convenient for you to learn at your own pace and to be able to work at the same time. That's one big difference. The second big difference, Seema, is that most MBA programs, most university programs actually, are not able to keep pace with the changes that are happening in the work environment. And so what we have done is that to keep pace, we have modified the business part of the program, the management part of the program, to include important areas like the question that was asked, such as data science, such as product management, such as digital marketing, which are the rage these days in the market. And it is expected now of every professional that they would be able to manipulate data, that they will understand how marketing works in the digital world, and that they will be able to do this thing called product management, which is nothing but integrating lots of different perspectives, information, and designing and constantly redesigning a product. So we've made the curriculum much more relevant, much more agile and nimble to take care of the day-to-day or the current demands of the recruiter. And the last thing is exactly what we have been talking about so far, that using Harappa's strength in our what we call Thrive skills, the foundational skills that allow you to pivot, that allow you to make changes in your trajectory. We've included a very strong element of leadership, which is really that foundational Thrive skills in the program, which doesn't, by the way, exist in any program anywhere in the world in terms of, and that's because of our focus, my own belief in those skills. And one of those skills is the storytelling skill that we were just talking about. That how do you tell your story better? How do you recognize your strengths better? That's part of your self-leadership, in leading yourself to a new orbit, to a new horizon, to a new pivot. So those 3 elements is what I would highlight. I think there are many more elements, and maybe you can speak to some that I may have missed out. I think the last thing I will say, and I think this is an important one before you add to it, and maybe this is what you are going to add, is the fact that the AMP program at the Harappa School of Leadership is taught by a lot of practitioners. And we believe that knowledge and wisdom doesn't come only from academics. In fact, there's a whole body of knowledge. In fact, it's better to train you in how to apply things at the workplace through the experience of people who have experience applying it, who have faced the hurdles and the challenges and the nitty-gritties of getting things done on the ground, because then you can apply it immediately at your workplace. And that's the beauty of this program, that you can actually, I teach on the program, as you know, and I often tell people, why don't you try it tomorrow? Why don't you try this with your colleague? Why don't you do this on the project that you're working on? And students do it. Just yesterday, Seema, one of our students started off by saying he'd been using all the concepts that I've been teaching them around problem definition, structuring problems. And he was saying how much it had helped him think through what they were doing. And, I see a chat from Uday that he works in rural development and social development. And this boy was talking about exactly that, in terms of enhancing the quality of teachers in the schools in Orissa and how he had applied our techniques. So bringing in a very practitioner-driven curriculum and pedagogical tools and methods where you teach that way, people are able to start applying the things right away and can see a difference in their lives and whatever they are doing right now.
So I'll just add on to Uday's question. He says he's in rural development, has a PG, postgraduate diploma, I'm presuming, in rural development. But he's worked with a political strategist. But now he wants to actually go back and work in rural development, but doesn't know how to start. So he wants to know, is there a solution? Is there a way for him to sort of get back and work in the sphere that he trained himself in?
Yeah, sure. It looks like he is working with Prashant Kishore already. These days, I think Prashant Kishore, funnily, I was just in a meeting where we were talking about Prashant Kishore and somebody who had gone and spent time on his yatra in Bihar. And maybe Uday is doing that, is part of that. I mean, listen, while you are doing the political strategy work with Prashant Kishore, since you are in Bihar, why don't you find an organization that is already involved in rural development and start volunteering there, start offering your services there, and basically see if they are willing to give you a chance. Maybe initially you won't get a job, but you'll get some experience. And with that experience, you can then build on that and apply for a rural development job. Equally, you could come to a program like ours, where even while you're working with Prashant Kishore, you go through this program, which gives you some of the core skills. All the management skills are also applicable in rural development, even though you have the rural development degree. And through our program, you apply into rural development organizations, our placement office. We are very committed to helping you make that switch or make that change. Will help identify organizations, position you with those organizations, advocate them that they should try you out, and that's how you make the switch. So there are multiple pathways to doing this. You could do this on your own. You could do this with some help. You could do this by giving some part-time time and volunteer. I think those are some of the ways in which you can make the switch. It's great that you already have the PG certification or diploma, so it gives you some credentials. And I'm sure that your work with Prashant Kishore also involves a lot of time in rural India. Again, as we were discussing before, can you take that experience and cull out or synthesize, pull out from that, hey, I've done grassroots work. I've seen what are the problems at the rural grassroots level. I've seen how one can actually work with the government to improve the impact of their programs. I know what are the problems of employment in rural India. Now that I've actually been on the ground, I've seen it. I'm not just studied it from a ivory tower university program, but I've learned on the ground. I know what the problems are for youth today in the rural India. And I've experienced that. I've talked to them. I've seen it. So I think, again, taking the experience out of the Prashant Kishore work to say what of that could be valuable, plus your PG certification, could actually make a very compelling story.
I have a question here from Subhi Garg. She says she has 6 years of experience in testing and then switched to data analysis. Her major interest is learning and working with the business itself rather than coding. So she wants to know if something, would a program like EMP help her?
Of course. Of course, every function wants people who want to who already have the skills of data analyst, but want to work in the business. Because every part of the business needs data analysts. Even you, Seema, were asking today that you needed a data analyst, weren't you? Because we need a data analyst to manage the data for our program. So many people are applying, what backgrounds, how do we cut the data? You look at marketing teams, they want data analysis. Certain companies have central teams managing data. Absolutely. And what this program does is it gives you those additional business skills, so you don't come in as just a nerdy data analyst. Even when I made a switch from being a engineer and a pure researcher to going into the world of business, I was given a crash course to just understand what is finance, what is accounting, how do you read a P&L, how do you think about profitability, what does marketing mean, what does sales mean, are the two different, what does operations and supply chain mean. So just becoming familiar with the overall vocabulary of business and what a business is really about will help you a great deal after this program to get onto a career path that could be joining a business, but it could be in a particular function in a business. But now you will not be a coder or a data analyst. You will be an operations person, you'll be a marketing person. And over a period of time, you would actually go across functions in a business and graduate to actually managing different parts of a business, still using your data skills, but playing a much more managerial and leadership role. So that's the kind of career path that you can have.
Okay, there's a question here from Malini, wants to know how can an educator adapt design thinking activities into the teaching arena? We do briefly teach design thinking in our program, but I think hers is slightly more specific. Anything here to add?
The learning arena, see, you can apply design thinking in how you design a full program, like an AMP program. You could design, so you could apply it to, Seema, we are talking about doing a leadership program for people who are in the sustainability field. Now, you can use design thinking to do that. You can talk to potential learners, you can take their inputs, you can talk to recruiters, take their input, put a prototype together, take the prototype and maybe test it out with some people. So you can apply the whole of design thinking to that. You can do the same for a particular course. So I work a lot with helping people who have never taught before design a course that they could teach. And I so again apply design thinking principles to say, okay, what is the need? What do people need? What can you offer? Put it all together, create a prototype. Prototype will be 10 lectures or 20 lectures of 90 minutes each. You know, what can you populate that? So again, education needs a lot of new ideas or new products, if you will, in terms of courses, programs, experiences for students. And design thinking is aptly suited for actually making those new ideas and innovations happen. You can also apply to improving things. So we are running this AMP program. We are recruiting now for the third cohort. A design thinker would take a look at what we have done so far and say, what are the things that we can do to improve it, to make it better, to make it innovative?
Pramath, I think there's a question here from Palak Malik. I'm not sure if she knows you. She says she has two questions. With a constantly changing work landscape, it's possible that we are forced to change our direction. How do you reposition while building on skills? And once you've spent a significant amount of time in one industry, how do you deal with the challenges that you face when you pivot at a senior level?
Right. So constantly changing work landscape, it's possible that we are forced to change it. How do you reposition ourselves by building on the skills? I'm not sure, but I know Palak. I don't know if Palak, I understand this first question. I'm reading it again. Well, the concept, yeah, so work landscape, is possible that we are forced to change our direction. Okay. How do you reposition while building on the skills? maybe you can clarify that for me. I'm a little bit confused. If you're saying,
I could unmute her, Palak, if you're willing to ask the question.
yeah,
I'll just.
yeah, why don't you try and unmute her and I'll try and answer the second one. Listen, if you spend a lot of time in a particular industry and you pivot to a senior level in the other industry, I think there are multiple ways in which you can deal with that situation. I think the question is, of course, one that you will do a lot of learning on your own and try. But I think there it'll be great to work with somebody who is also been in that industry for some time and at the senior level, and get that person as a little bit of a mentor, a coach, to help you. I think that's a good way to do it. But also, even though you're at the senior level, I have found when I do this in new areas, to learn from the team. What is happening to me right now at Harappa, for example, is I'm not moving industries, but at a very, I would say that I'm senior. I'm actually having to fill in for the engineering function in our company. Now, I don't know anything about engineering or technology. I mean, I used to know many years ago, but certainly not kept pace with it. I'm learning a lot by using my foundational skills, by talking to the team and synthesizing what is going on, and then becoming my superior ability to synthesize, aggregate, identify, to find what are the areas which have to be prioritized, but what is important for us, what is not important for us, identifying the issues that are there, is already positioning me at a senior level, even though I have no experience, right? It goes back to the point about foundational skills. Your ability to read the situation, your ability to be curious and ask stupid questions, but actually those are very probing questions that other people suddenly realize are not so stupid because they may not have direct answers to. Questions that nobody has asked them, challenges that nobody has ever posed to them. If you just do that without having this imposter syndrome in your head that you're not ready or you don't have experience in that area, you will be able to assimilate a lot of that information and use your senior thinking, your wisdom and experience and confidence to be able to stitch that together into very quickly scaling up and saying, even though I don't know the domain, I know the right questions to ask. I'm able to take the answers and connect the dots and be able to start behaving very quickly as if I'm a senior person in this field. And I've seen that happen and again with people. In fact, the more senior you are, your ability to do this becomes better and better. On the first...
Sorry, you haven't finished. No, please finish.
Now, I think on the first question, now that I'm looking at it, I think what Palak is asking is this sort of concurrent nature of the shift in the direction or shift in the work landscape and having to build the skills in parallel. Well, I think that is where, Palak, a lot of the skill building, I think there are two ways in which you learn skills while you're working. One is by doing. So take on the projects, do the work, and you learn new skills. I don't think skills grows on trees that you go and you say, okay, I'm going to pluck a skill and then I'm going to apply it to work. So I think somewhere it's important to actually throw yourself into the work and let that teach you, and then make the mistakes that you might make and learn from it. While you are doing that, as gaps appear in your repertoire or in your skills, then seek out books, seek out people, seek out YouTube videos, seek out courses, seek out mentors who will help you fill those gaps. So I think one has to be a bit deliberate about saying you almost have a stack that you have to build, and in that stack you start putting the bricks to build up that whole stack. And those bricks could come from anywhere. It could come from your experience of actually working in a new area, or it could come from other experts, it could come from online courses, it could come from videos, like I said, it could come from experiences. So I think that's how I would think about it. And I don't know if I've answered your question.
Okay, Pramath, I'll just pick up this one question from GS. I think he had already asked us the question earlier. He says AMP is a cross-functional program, but with someone with 20 years of experience, especially if you've grown through the ranks and on the job. I mean, what kind of depth and sort of, coverage will the AMP program give someone like this with this kind of background?
For GS, while you claim that you have all these different experiences, grown through the ranks, learned on the job, what we will give you is a very strong framework to think about all the experiences in a way that is very structured. I've seen this often in programs like the AMP. It's not like we'll teach you something completely new, but we'll stitch it together for you in a way that it'll suddenly come together and say, aha, so I actually know all of these things, and these things come together in this structured way to solve problems. All my experience come together in this structured way for communication. Everything I know fits this way. And what the AMP will do is also identify the gaps in your understanding and fill those gaps very quickly. So things will start making a lot more sense, even if you've been doing this for 20 years. So I think it's a combination of things becoming more structured and more useful in that way. And the other is being able to fill the gaps. And what we do is actually we cover both depth and breadth. It's a very broad program because we are not building specialization. We are actually making you a generalist so that you actually have the generalist skills to do whatever you need to do in the world, but giving you enough depth so that you can go and build on it if you need to. You have enough exposure to different things that it's not alien or foreign to you.
Also, I think one more unique component for us is the fact that we do run a career office, and it starts almost beginning of the program, where it's not just about, the placement or other things. It's also training you, counseling you, training you, helping you to think what your pivot could be, helping you to update your resume, giving mock interviews, interacting with different members of your cohort to for many of us, careers, the way the landscape is changes all the time. And where do we get this training in any case? How many of us have had this chance to actually have someone speak to us, give us some level of counseling, hear us out, and then help us to see where our career can go, what's the path we need? So I think that I believe is a very unique, you also get industry speakers who come and talk to you. You get, very like, for example, one of our cohorts is they are setting up speaker series. So within a diverse cohort, people with different backgrounds actually talk about their own profession. So people you wouldn't meet anywhere else. That's what AMP opens for you, right, Pramath?
Yes, I think that peer learning and the mixing up of people from very different backgrounds is a big part of the learning that we didn't talk about, which we should have emphasized. Yes.
I have a question here from Animesh. I'm not really clear what he's asking.
I think I saw that. I think Animesh is asking, is he too old for this program? Not at all. With 10 years of experience, you're probably in your early 30s, and you're going to work for another 50 years, or at least 30, 40 years, 40 years definitely. So you have a long way to go, Animesh. There's going to be lots happening in your life, new areas, new careers, new opportunities. So it's never too late to do this program.
So there's another question here to say, how is AMP?
I would say that this program has been designed for people like you. Sorry to interrupt, cut you off, Sinha.
No problem. There's another anonymous question where they want to know how it is different from the other programs that we are working on, which show on our website, which is, I think, the People Leadership Program and the Women's Leadership Program. Those programs will take some time to come at present, and they're also they're work in progress in different parts of the organization. But the AMP is a mix of, I think, some core Harappa skills plus some skills from the industry. And I think that's the big differentiator. Anything else you would like to add, Pramath?
No, I would say that, Seema, the two other programs are not so heavy in management. So the people leadership is much more about the 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 talent and the HR and the people leadership part of the function. So these are much more functionally, that's very functionally oriented. And the women's leadership is also much more catering to women leaders and some of the challenges that they face in their career. It's less about teaching you the broader gamut of management uh, 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 subjects that we think you need to have a corporate career and a management career or a social sector career where you're managing things, where you're leading things. So that way the AMP program is actually an abbreviated MBA, while those two programs are much more specialized programs.
So we have another question from somebody who's in the education industry and says is working in managing programs. And they came across the term T-shaped professional. Given that any management is a general management role, can they make a career pivot? Can AMP help me building in more clarity on where I can pivot or how, basically what my transferable skills are?
Absolutely. Great example of the T-shaped. The T-shape has this thing at the top, which cuts across, and then it has the bottom, which is the specialization. So we cover the top. That's the top part of the T, is what the AMP is, but it gives you little hooks which allow you to go deeper whenever you want, wherever you want. Now, more clarity on where you should pivot, absolutely. I think that's what our placement office does, right? It tries to understand your background. It tries to understand your transferable skills. It tries to understand what you want to do, what you're interested in, haven't been able to make that shift, and then tries to identify companies that are willing to take a bet on somebody like you who may not have worked in that field. So it's a joint effort on how to figure out your pivot. It's a combination of what the demand is in the market, what your interest levels are, and what are the transferable skills, and what we can add to that through the AMP program. So absolutely, we spend a lot of time. Our whole focus is on helping you get clarity on how to pivot and where to pivot.
Aman wants to know if there's placement assistance. Yes, of course, there is placement assistance. And Pramath, if you'd like to add something more there.
No, we help you with right from doing your resume to practicing your interviews to telling your story, which I was talking about earlier. I don't know if you were there earlier, Aman, as to what are your skills, how would you sell yourself to a prospective employer, to identifying employers, to taking you to those employers and saying, here's why Aman could be useful in your company or in your industry, because sometimes you need help making the case. We act almost like your lawyer or your advocate with the recruiter to make a case of why they should check you out, and we facilitate those interviews and those meetings, and we stay with you till you've actually found something that you feel satisfied with.
Okay. They're saying, will this course help someone who's a teacher pivot to the higher education industry?
Absolutely. Higher education industry needs lots of people who are AMP graduates. In fact, at all the higher educational institutions that I'm involved in, they're already interviewing our AMP graduates. Whether you are a teacher or a software programmer or a marketing professional, so especially today, the higher education industry is expanding so rapidly with many private universities which are looking for more administrative management channel. If you have somebody who's got the teaching background, for example, Yuvika is actually like that in our first batch, right, Seema? And in fact, she comes from a teaching background and she's interviewing with Ashoka University. She got a job offer from Ashoka University. So that's actually a great example of how a teacher can pivot into higher education. And the programs that she was interviewing for is because Ashoka actually runs high school programs. In fact, I think, Seema, your daughter attended that program, right? When you're in high school, you come to Ashoka campus over the summer and experience the campus. And she was being recruited to help run those programs. So yeah, there are many ways in which you can do the pivot through the AMP. That's what the program is for.
All right, I think we're almost at time. If there are any other questions, we'd be happy to take a last question. But other than that, just to say that the next cohort starts in May. And I think we've already put up a link where you could sort of call up and see if you'd like to understand more about the program, more detailed questions. Or if you just want to sort of speak to a program advisor, that's also available. Finally, Pramath, last question from me. Working professionals always, I mean, if you're working and you need to do a program, is this program intense, or is it, do you feel like we've created a program that helps you to find the balance to sort of, learn something and update yourself and move on with your
Sinha,
job?
I've now been teaching on 2 cohorts. And I
Right.
think we have roughly 80 odd students between these 2 cohorts. I think we struck a good balance. I think we continue to tweak our program. I mean, remember earlier we used to just do weekends. Working professionals, we thought would want to do only on the weekends, but they said, no, can we have some programs during the week in the evenings? So I'm often teaching 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. at night, and people show up. I think it's really a question of keeping the quality high so that people feel really that they get FOMO for not showing up or not. And then we take into account their preferences. So I think we are constantly evolving and our balance is getting better. We are doing design thinking as far as the program is concerned. And yeah, I think we have a good balance now. It'll only get better.
All right, so I think we'll close here, but thank you everyone for joining. And as we said, there is a hand that got raised. Sorry. I'm not sure who it was.
It also went down.
Yeah, maybe it was a mistake. All right. Thank you so much. And then we are.
Thank you for joining. Please do apply if you find this interesting, and we look forward to seeing you in our 3rd cohort. Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.